Hi, my name's John. Welcome to another Wednesday catch-up video. First of all, I want to say a massive thanks for all the kind words, well wishes, emails, messages I've had coming in regarding basically the way I've been feeling. I'm definitely on the mend. I feel a little better, whether it's a medication, the counselling, I don't know. Talking certainly helps, but I am definitely better than I was, sort of getting back to some stage of normality. I've managed to get a little bit of work done in the workshop. I've managed to get some work done outside. The shed that Deborah calls the invisible shed. I've done a little bit more work to make it a little bit more invisible. I'll show you some of that. I'm also going to show another video in the series of videos all about the lathe tutorial videos I did quite some time ago. I'll put some more of that up. It seemed to have a really good response. Right, this is looking up towards sort of the industrial part of my garden. That's the lap that Deborah's been busy with. That's the new shed that we built. It's going to be sort of the invisible shed. And I was going to put a gate in there somewhere, and Deborah says, put a fence up. So I built a fence here, then we'll put a gate on it, which opens that way. So now everything's hidden. It's better for me in here. It's more secure, a lot more private. I'll bring you in and show you one or two things I've done to the gate to make it more than basically just a gate. Just some bits of wood. I give everything a coat of grey floor paint. Now that shed there, I would like to have a painting of a steamroller on there. So if anybody knows anybody that's sort of like good with that sort of thing, not a detailed painting, more like a big sort of sketch. My dad did one for us years ago of a main entrance. I would like that done on there. I don't know, just something I fancy doing. And so that's the gate we've built. Bit fence, I've got some scrap wood stored there. I've made the gate so it lifts off. It's on those type of hinges where you can just lift it off, which is going to be quite handy because it gives us a bit more room when the gate's not on. And also, Deborah wants our garden table back, so I was going to mount two hinges or two brackets on the shed, and then I can slot the gate we've made on, sort of slot it on horizontally with a couple of legs in. It'll make a really good temporary bench, because space is like a premium for me up here. Hi, my name's John. Welcome to part 2 in a series of short videos all about the use of the metal turning lathe. In this video I'm going to show a little bit about lathe tools, the various shapes of tools, high-speed steel tools as well as carbide tools. These are the 4 most common tools that I use. That tool there is a right-hand knife tool. That probably does 90% of your lathe work for facing and sliding cuts. That's a left-hand knife tool. It's just the opposite to that one. That tool there is used for putting chamfers on, and also for taking heavy cuts for roughing out material. And that tool there is a boring tool for making holes in material. These are all carbide tools, inexpensive tools. They weren't expensive at all. The tips are very cheap, and for what they are, they do quite well. These are high-speed steel tools, which are probably more useful on a smaller, lower powered lathe. These can be ground to whatever shape you need. We've got normal knife tools, we've got a chamfer tool. That's a piece of plain high-speed steel that hasn't been ground, and that's a boring tool that I've had for a long time, and it really is a good tool. I use that quite a lot. You can buy ready ground high-speed steel tool sets. They aren't expensive, and it certainly is a good way to start. Once you get a feel for things and you realise what's happening, then you can start grinding your own tools. There's books and there's hours and hours of videos all about tools, tool angles, relief angles, how to grind them. I'm not going to go into great details about grinding tools. Screw cutting tools and parting tools will be covered as we cover screw cutting and parting off, but basically I just want to show you the basic tools and their uses. The lathe tool is held in a tool holder. That's the tool holder there. That simply drops onto there and is locked in place with that handle. What it also does, there's a nut on here that you can adjust up or down to set up the height of the end of that tool. The tool must be dead on centre height of the job. So that's locked in place. You can loosen that off and change that to any angle you want to get your clearance angle right for whatever you're machining. Means you can take this off and put another tool on, and you know that the tool has been set up on centre height. It's a really quick way of doing things. And the boring bar goes on the back one, and that's for cutting internal holes. The other method is a square tool post, and you put little shims underneath the tools to pack them up onto working height. It works just the same, just it takes a lot more time to set up. I mentioned that the tool tip must be on centre height. This is probably the easiest way to set it up. I've put a centre in the lathe tailstock, and the very tip of that is exactly the centre height of the lathe. I'll bring the camera in closer and we'll see if we can get this lifted up to be at the right height. You can see that the tool is actually above centre height. So we loosen it off, drop it down until it is in line with the centre, which is there. That's pretty good. That's going to get you very, very near. Another way to set the tool on centre height is to simply put a piece of round bar in the chuck, put your tool in the tool holder. If you put a steel ruler between the round bar and the tool and just a little nip on the tool, you can see how the ruler is lying towards me. It's lying like that, which means that the tool is too low. So if we lift the tool up, that's better. A little bit more. Well, that certainly appears to be lying vertical or perpendicular, possibly slightly more up. That looks good. You could put a square on, I suppose, and compare it to a square, but basically that looks good. If we put a square on there and bring it in, you can see it's actually still too low. It wants to come across a little bit. The gap at the top is less than it is at the bottom, so we'll bring it some more. And that is just about as good as they're going to get, I would think. We'll try a face and cut and see where the tool is actually lying. Right, so there's no little pip on the end, so that is dead on centre height. And the same tool can be used to put a chamfer on the end. I mentioned earlier that this right hand knife tool is the most common tool in use. It can be used for facing. You can take a facing cut like that. And also for turning, for reducing the diameter. So it does both those jobs on the same setting very nicely indeed. This is actually stainless steel. Nasty stringy chips off the bastard stuff. I've changed the tool. This tool is used for putting chamfers on like that, and also for taking heavier cuts. You can take a real heavy cut with this tool, and the chips are very thin but quite broad. Obviously this is a very rigid, stiff lathe, but the same applies to a lesser degree. On a smaller lathe, you just take smaller cuts. So them two tools are probably the most common tools used on the lathe. I will take that one out and put its equivalent in, which is a high-speed steel tool. This needs setting up for centre height because I know I used it before. So we'll do that now. We'll use the ruler method. That's pretty good. Right, so this is high-speed steel tooling on stainless, and it works perfectly alright. You can't take as big a cut as you can with carbide, but it's still nice, you get a good finish. And the beauty is you can resharpen it. One important thing is how much tool you have poking out of the tool holder. It needs to be as short as possible. That's called overhang. When that bar is spinning round and you're taking a cut, it's physically trying to tear this tool down over. It's trying to twist everything down like that. That's why everything needs to be as rigid and solid as possible. So what you don't have is a tool all the way out there, because you're going to increase the loading, you're going to get vibration and chatter. They need to be in as close and tight as possible. Overhang is one of your major problems on lathes. I think that's enough for this section on tooling. So that's two types, high speed steel and carbide. I use carbide most of the time, but I also do use high speed steel. If you're using a small hobbyist lathe, you'll probably find you end up using high speed steel. But carbide tooling has become easily accessible now. It's not expensive, so it certainly is worth experimenting with. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little bit video. If you have any questions or anything you want us to discuss, just send us an email. Once again, just time to say thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Once again, thanks for all the kind words and well wishes. And don't forget, if you've got somebody that's sort of not right, ask them what's the matter, try and help them. If you're feeling pissed off, desperate, and you're thinking about doing something stupid, there is help available. Please don't bottle it up. If me saying these words helps just one person, it's been all well worthwhile. Anyway, thanks for watching.